Hello and welcome to yet another For Wales, See Wales. My name is Robin Morgan.
My name's Mel Owen.
And I'm Will Hayward.
We are doing our third ever virtual record, our third episode of the week. This is, it's an emergency pod.
Public service announcement to anybody in Welsh politics who thinks that they can drop big news on a Thursday and thinks we're just going to cool off for a week. It's not happening, okay? James Evans, we see you, right? We hit that emergency pod button. You think we're going to wait a week? Come on.
Yeah, we've called you out on it, I think. You know, we won't play to your silly little games. We are, of course, recording in the wake of quite a big announcement within Welsh politics. It's something that we've talked about for the last, year and a half, really. The fact that Reform UK don't have a Welsh leader, except now, guys, they do.
Will, what's going on?
So yesterday there was a Reform, to use their word, rally in the ICC in Newport. Rumours were abound about what it could be, and as Robin says, we've been talking for a long time about the fact they don't have a Welsh leader and that they wanted to leave it till quite close to the election. And obviously we're now, getting close to the election, and they have announced a man who, I'm going to be honest, I hadn't heard of, and his name is Dan Thomas. So, had you heard of Dan Thomas, guys?
I know a comedian called Dan Thomas who when the news, I got a breaking news alert and I texted him saying congratulations, and he said what? And then I linked an article and he went, oh no.
I
know, he messaged me going, this is terrible for me, and I was like, it is.
To be fair, I can understand you guys not knowing who he is because he's for several decades has been a councillor in Barnet, and that's Barnet in London. But he is from
not Barnet by Bangor.
Barnet Bangor.
Is Barnet not in North Wales? No,
he's originally from Blackwood in the Valleys, and he's back to lead his country out of being broken, because apparently being broken is a very important thing. Being broken is something that it's worth leaving a party over, because if you don't admit something's broken, you can't fix it. So we're going to talk about Dan Thomas, but first I'd like to talk to you about James Evans. So James Evans was booted out of the Conservatives a couple of weeks ago. He's then been in a bit of a kind of never region. I like to think that he's been holding a boombox outside Nigel Farage's house, desperately appealing to be allowed to come in. And at the rally, he was announced and he gave a speech. Before we do the speech, let me just read out some of the stuff that James Evans said when he was on this podcast less than a year ago. So James came on the pod. I find it quite scary. Reform's messaging using scapegoats and simple slogans for complex issues. Reform's arguments of using certain demographics of the population as scapegoats for all our country's problems is dangerous rhetoric, in my opinion. It's dangerous rhetoric. Okay. He also said, not on the pod, but another time, Reform UK do not have a plan for Wales. They have slogans, they have complaints, but not serious policies. These people are total hypocrites. So I want you to bear that in mind. So this is what James Evans had to say from his first speech as a Reform MS from the ICC in Newport.
And I want to be honest again. I have criticised Reform in the past. I've done it publicly, and I'm not hiding away from it, and I'm certainly not going to rewrite history. But serious people, not career politicians, reassess when the reality refuses to go away. As someone once told me, a wise person can change their mind, a fool never knows how. So I looked again, I listened, I read the detail, and I saw a movement that has grown and starts where the other parties refuse to start, with the truth that Britain is broken, that Wales is broken, and nothing gets fixed until you're willing to admit it. As we speak, I'm sure the Welsh media bubble will be rolling out on social media and on the press my so-called greatest hits. All quotes, half sentences, clipped lines stripped of context, and I can assure everyone Laura Ann Jones is a very good friend of mine. And they do this not to inform people, but try to destroy reputations. That's how the Welsh media in Wales works. It's driven by left-wing activists who pass themselves off as journalists. And to me, Reform exists for a reason. Because people got fed up with being told what to think, told to fall in line, and told to pretend that things were fine when they clearly are not. One person who has stood against that time and time again, is Nigel Farage.
Well, guys, I feel called out. I don't know about you, but I felt shots fired. Honestly, I was taking body shots throughout of that.
He didn't name names. I did drop him a message, actually. He didn't respond. He saw it, but he didn't respond. He's probably too busy telling the truth. What were your initial thoughts?
I thought it was, he went big, didn't he? He went quite powerful. He went, he rallied against the media, rallied against Plaid and Labour as a 1-2. It sort of certainly felt like, I heard that Farage said that Jeremy Kyle has been training their candidates in media training, which I absolutely love. So you can really tell that, can't you? And I find it interesting that he was talking about unpaid Plaid campaigners, obviously a reference to the Caerphilly by-election debate as well, when the mother of that viral clip that she's now running for Plaid is that kind of thing. So obviously it was a crowd pleasing thing. I thought it was a bold move for him to do the entire speech from inside a bathtub. I thought that was quite interesting. But
William Hayward, you were called out quite a little. Well, without naming you, it felt like there were shots fired.
Obviously we don't know who he was referring to. He's got my, if he felt that way, he could obviously drop me a line. We've spoken quite a bit in the past. To be honest, I don't care about really who he was talking about, because I don't think it really matters. But because what I think is really important here is the change in tone. So the second he has joined Nigel Farage's party, the change in tone from a man who said he thought that their rhetoric and their isolation and targeting of different minorities was dangerous, to essentially what he was saying about Farage, which was, you have been told what to think. You have been told to be quiet, and we are railing against that as though there's some kind of conspiracy. And I think when you go into that, when that is the rabbit hole you have decided to go down, when before that you have said that Reform are dangerous and that they are trying to isolate communities and target minorities, there's either two options here. Either you really believe when you said that Reform were targeting migrants and they were targeting with really dangerous rhetoric. Either you believe that and you are now saying the opposite for political opportunity, or you didn't believe that when you said it and you were just trying to look a certain way because it was politically expedient, and actually this is what you believed all along. Or there's a third option, which I would suggest is the correct one, which he doesn't believe any of it. He will say whatever he needs to say in order to have a career which I think, not just for James, but for a lot of politicians, is paid well beyond what they would get at a market rate. And I think that is what we're seeing here, isn't it? The morality of politicians can absolutely spin on a dime. I mean, this is something that he said. I'll just read out one of his tweets. Now, I know he doesn't like it when people clip his quotes, as he said there. So let's read it in full, just so he's not been misrepresented. Reform has no leader, no policies, just complaints and slogans. It's easy to jump ship when things get tough, but real leadership takes courage and principles to drive change from within. I promise my constituents that I won't sacrifice my values for political opportunity. Instead, I will stand firm and work with my Welsh Conservative colleagues to fix Wales for the benefit of everyone. Just in the interest of being really clear, I don't want to misrepresent him. He then does a strong arm emoji saying real change takes action, not just words.
Look, we've talked on the podcast before about how people can change their minds. Do you know what I mean? And that's a good thing. We very rarely is anybody in or out of office going to believe what they believed when they were 18, when they're 68. That is absolutely fine. I think it is a very big leap from, coming on our podcast and calling them scary and dangerous. And, I believe that we posted clips in their entirety. The whole episode is available to view, unclipped, where he said those words. It is a huge jump to go from dangerous, scary, etc. to they're going to fix broken Wales. Very interesting that broken is now their tagline. It is broken. And it's a clever one.
I don't want to kind of make it all about his comments on the media, because we don't really know who he was talking about. And it is something that we see a lot from that particular part of politics, that if you scrutinise us, you are an opponent. You are not a part of the free press doing their job in scrutinising people who were elected and paid by the state. Instead, you are an enemy. You are somebody who is trying to undermine us. And I don't kind of want to labour this point, but open a history book and see what sort of people tend to follow that kind of messaging. Now, I think that it's a dangerous way to go, and I think it's from a guy who was actually quite media engaged. So he would speak to the media. He did like to put himself forward, and I think the fact that he's now gone to Reform is very culty, and nothing reminded me from that press one more of. Did you see at Davos when Donald Trump was stood there with all of the leaders who joined his board of peace, and they were all just stood behind him, just nodding as he gave a speech, because he is seen as because he's the godfather, isn't he? He's the Don. He's the dear leader, and I think that is what happens when you join Reform. You fall in line behind the dear leader. You have not joined a political party in a normal sense. You have joined a cult with a cult leader who charges a hell of a lot for you to be a member. And as soon as he joined, the lines, the messaging, the rhetoric all fell in with the party doctrine, the party orthodoxy. I think that is what we saw.
But I think he's done that in the past wherever he's been. I think when he's done, as you say, he's been very happy to jump on the media rounds to promote his own sort of, I suppose, stock within the Conservative Party. And then he jumped on our podcast and started to make a much more centrist approach and say that the Reform were scary. And now he's jumped in front of Reform and is playing that party playbook. So I think he'll just say what people want to hear. He sort of described himself not as a career politician. That's exactly what he's trying to be.
Yeah, exactly. And what is going to be interesting is where he gets placed on that list, because if he's in Powers, there's other people who've jumped ship before him who've got a significant amount of influence within Reform. And I wonder whether actually he's going to end up lower down on a list. And there are scenarios where he doesn't then get his seat. I imagine, he'll find another party after that. Shall we move on and talk about the new leader of Reform in Wales? He had some interesting quotes about immigration.
Can I say, Will, that I think it's so funny that the entire media met, firstly at the ICC in Newport, which is as close to England as you can get. It's the smallest bit of Wales you get into before you can get back into England, secondly. And then James Evans is this big thing. We're going to announce a new leader. Here's James Evans. But it's not him. And then they bring someone else in. Absolutely wild that he's just like, hey, new leader day. Wait, what? And then they bring in some dude from North London. I love it. I absolutely loved it.
Dan Thomas, so grown up in Blackwood, and he left at 18 for a career in finance and served 2 decades as a Tory councillor. Before we go into him, what do you guys think of it's another Conservative? 2 more former Conservatives joining?
Yeah, I mean, this is what we're going to expect now, isn't it? At what point are people going to realise this is just the Conservatives again? Do you know what I mean? Like, at what point is that going to register with voters? Is it at all? I don't know. Maybe we'll save that for next week. But yeah, I was not surprised.
It is really funny that even Reform's sort of like colour scheme is blue, but slightly different. Like
Just
a little bit whiter.
that.
It's just
very
the Tories
that.
with added white. Very well played.
Yeah.
There was a question asked by S4C where they asked that exact question of Farage, where they said, Lauren Jones, James Evans, is it too many Tories? And they were booed and hissed by the crowd at this rally. It's almost a Americanization of our politics, which obviously Reform are really keen to have. It's that idea of the enemies of the people and this kind of lack of respect for the basics of a democratic process, which is what a kind of free press is. So let's now move on and talk about Dan Thomas. So he left Wales when he was 18 for his career in finance, and he gave a speech when he was there, and he talked about immigration. So he said, Labour implied we're living in denial when it comes to immigration. And you'll remember before the Caerphilly by-election, we did a lot of coverage around the amount of actual migrants in Caerphilly and how low it was, and how actually the Senedd doesn't actually have any power over immigration anyway. And he addressed that in his speech. He said, "They say there's nothing to be concerned about because immigration is relatively low in Wales. And besides, it's not devolved, so let's not talk about it." Well, I can tell you the people of Wales are concerned about immigration, and it's not hard to see why. He then talked about something which I don't think we really want to go into because I'm pretty sure it's could have been contempt of court because it's an ongoing case. And then he said, "And then there's a number of increasing HMOs in Welsh towns, which are changing the character of our communities forever. HMOs are a symptom of a housing crisis. And one of the major causes of a housing crisis is uncontrolled immigration, which has a ripple effect across the UK. I have seen what uncontrolled immigration has done in London over the last 20 years. The pressures on public services, schools, hospitals, the congestion, the community cohesion issues. I have seen what weak and woke policing has done to law and order in London." I mean, the Met have been notoriously gentle. "And I do not want to see Wales and my hometown go down the same path as London." Cool. So setting the stall out early, all the stuff that, rallied people against them in Caerphilly, they're doubling down on, because I think actually they think, well, actually we don't really need to win in Wales. We just need 20 seats, and that's going to be plenty. So yeah, but he went out the gate with some interesting rhetoric.
Yeah, I mean, he set the tone, isn't he? What he's going to be like, and it's like, again, it's Farage light, it's these sound bites. I mean, hilarious that he thinks that the police are soft and gentle in London.
Weak and woke.
And weak and woke, apologies. Try being anything but white. I mean, not to bring race into it. I mean, he has, but try being. This is the whitest shit I've ever heard. If you think the police are weak and woke, that is the whitest thing I have ever fucking heard. Good luck to him. Sorry.
Those London comparisons are really interesting because I think it's that part of the internet that thinks London has fallen and Sadiq has ruined London. And I think it's tapping into that kind of idea of it. But I mean, will that resonate? Are the people of real going to think it's going to turn into London around here? Are people genuinely going to think that that's what's going to happen? The idea that, the fact that he addressed that immigration numbers are low and it's not devolved. The fact that he said that and then said, but the people are worried about it. I don't know, as you said, about this, you play to the people in the room, right? And those people are the diehards. Will that resonate? I think once people start to unpick that, I don't know. But I mean, but that London comparison, if that's the thing, Britain is broken. I was in charge of a London borough. I know how bad it's got over there, and I will be the one to save you from here. Feels like that's why they've chosen him, or one of the reasons why they've chosen him, right? Because I think there is that narrative of he had to leave Wales to be successful, and now he's come back, and we're gonna, the dragon will roar again. I think was one of the quotes from the day. I mean, I lived in London for 6 years. I came back. I can't criticize someone for doing that. But I think the idea that I left because it was broken. Well, you left because you lost your job as a councillor, and then you changed parties.
But Robin, did the dragon roar upon your return? That is the question.
It really didn't, and I don't know why. And this is a question I want to put to him. Come on the pod, Dan Thomas. Come on the pod.
I would love to have him on. And I hope he would.
I've got similarities with him. My two kids are going to grow up in Wales, just like I did. We've got loads of similarities, me and Dan Thomas. So I'd love him to come on.
The decision to choose someone who isn't. He's Welsh. I'm not doubting his Welsh credentials, but what I do think someone who's not within the party well known in Wales. I wonder about that. I wonder if they've been I wonder when this decision was made. I've been doing a little look around at some of his previous stuff. I mean, he is experienced in working in politics. I'm not sure running a council qualifies you to be First Minister. I just want to nip back to what you guys were saying about, is this going to appeal to people? And I think what we see in the data now is actually people aren't really moving between parties. I think if you're voting Reform now, you're voting Reform. If you're not voting Reform, you're not voting Reform. And what I think will be Reform are now competing for isn't winning new voters. It's getting voters out to vote, and it's making noise. Because if everybody who says they like Reform votes Reform, they'll get a hell of a lot of seats. But they need to motivate those people to go out and do it. And I think that is probably what this messaging is about, because the kind of stuff they're putting out won't resonate with most people in Wales. We know from the polling, we know from loads of data that most people aren't buying what they're saying, but they don't need most people to buy what they're selling. They need their supporters to want to vote for them. And I think that is probably what they're going in for now.
And I think what you were saying, Robin, about, are people going to look and think, oh my God, we don't want our hometown to be like London. I think there are people who do look at London and it looks terrible from the outside to them. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are some people to whom it appeals massively, and what an amazing opportunity, what an amazing multicultural place, a land of opportunity. I'd love to live there. There are also a lot of people who are like, I would never go because that is a scary, dangerous place, which is overrun with heathens and bad people. And I don't want that happening in my hometown. And he's going to save us from that. He knows he's the prodigal son who's been away and he's coming back to save us from the horrors that he's seen. I do think there are people who would buy into that. I do.
It's going to be interesting. Yeah, they've chosen him. I was watching like a live feed of the conference, and someone's Gareth Lewis, the BBC's Gareth Lewis said there was like more muted applause for Dan Thomas as he came to the stage compared to Farage and James Evans. He's like, maybe people were Googling him, which I think is like a fair sort of assumption of what could be happening. Because, I mean, if you are, the people in that room now need to back this dude 100%, right? If as you said, well, if it is this cultish thing, then we're fully in this guy. If Nigel thinks he's a good guy, then he's a good guy. So they're going to completely back him. And I think they've clearly chosen him for the London narrative, he's come back home to save it, and also I guess they've done their background checks on him. He must be squeaky clean, because I mean, like, with previous reform leaders, that has not been the case. So they must have done their background checks on this guy.
Well, we'll see. I think people will very visibly back him to start with. I think with political parties like this, everything below the leader, who is untouchable, I think is fair game. I think there'll be a few people who are really annoyed that it's not them who's going up there. But I think initially we won't, that won't bubble up over the surface. So it was good just to get together and have a little kind of initial debrief. Obviously, it's a lot of what we're doing at the moment, we're just reacting to something that's very much kind of just happened. But next week, in the coming weeks, we'll be diving into this a bit more. But it was nice to chew the fat with you guys, a third time in a week.
Third time. Guys, should we just move in together? I feel like that's what we're doing now anyway. Should we all just move in?
I mean, this is what the listeners don't know. This is actually our one house, and this is how it looks. Yeah. It's just decorated really bizarrely, but this is exactly how it looks.
Very differently in every room. Yeah, absolutely. But we'll deep dive again. I mean, 3 episodes in a week. Who knows? Can we go for a 4th?
Producer Daryl looks terrified.
Cool. So we'll be back next week with normal service will resume until another bombshell in Welsh politics happens.
I've been Mel Owen.
I've been Robin Morgan.
And I'm Will Hayward.
Bye.
Bye.